Hello and welcome to Around the Lens, episode 150, the big 150, the big 3-year anniversary Megisode. Thank you so much for joining us. Woohoo! Yeah, let's clap. Let's get a round of applause. We made it.
Golf clap.
Golf clap. I will take it either way. So thank you all. This is good. It's going to be a great show. If you've not been to one of our Megisodes before, it's pretty awesome. I get as many guests, panelists together as I can in one chat, and we do just an awesome roundtable discussion about all kinds of different things. We got a lot of things to talk about this evening. We're going to be giving away a camera bag. We're going to be talking about the state of Around the Lens. We're going to talk about some awesome topics, 8K video, astronauts, you name it. Everything is up in the air tonight. No holds bars. Everything's going. So before we get on with the show, of course, let me introduce Ron Hamilton, the co-host with the mostest. How you doing, Ron?
Another beautiful day in Hawaii, sir.
Indeed.
I'm wearing my Around the Land shirt today for the special episode.
Yeah.
So you're the guy that bought it.
Styling.
I am the one and only, as far as I know. I'm also the only Patreon subscriber.
Shh. We don't want to let everything out of the bag yet. Yeah, that's right. Ron's our
you too can join me.
That's right. Become a Patreon subscriber, and I'll send you a T-shirt.
There you go.
Sure.
Once you like if you put it $1, then once you have donated enough to pay for a T-shirt, I will send you that T-shirt. So the revenue I make from however much you subscribe, I don't think I've gotten any of the revenue from your $1, by the way, Ron. I haven't got any revenue from Patreon, any revenue from Cafe Press.
Yeah.
So, anyways. Anything new with you, Ron, before we move on?
I turned 50 tomorrow. I had
happy
party
birthday
on Saturday. Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Congrats.
It's time to shoot me. Yeah.
Well, this is the best birthday present I could think of, Ron, to have you on episode 150 to celebrate your 50th.
Exactly.
So, happy birthday, buddy. Preliminary.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. What are you going to do for your birthday?
Oh, we had steak last night. We're going to have steak again tomorrow night.
There you go. All right. All right, well, let's get on with the show. We got a lot of awesome guests to introduce. We're going to start with our one new person who has not been on a Around the Lens episode before, Glenn. Glenn, why don't you go and tell us about yourself, Mr. Glenn?
Hi,
Glenn
guys.
Batkin.
Yeah, let's see. It's I might be a little different than your average person on your show. So I work in advertising as a creative director, and I obviously have a passion for photography, but I think it grew out of working around photographers for over 25 years. You know, so as a creative director of an ad agency, you're kind of responsible for the look and feel and the tone of any brand that you're working on. But these days, so much of that involves photography, so you really do get a chance to see it and live it and breathe it and work with and get to pick photographers, you know, and try to work through the process. And so I think I got swept up in all that and started shooting on my own, you know, as part of a passion. As part of a hobby, really.
Nice. And what is that job sort of? What's the day-to-day like of that job?
Well, as a creative director, you're sort of in charge of a number of teams that help you work on any project. So if you're working for, you can name just about any brand, there are numerous projects that you have to fulfill, and you are kind of at the top of the chain, so to speak. So it's pretty much your vision. How do you create a personality for a brand? How do you create the tone? And the look and feel and all that. And so you work with a large group and you come to those conclusions, and you kind of muscle through projects and get to present them and execute them. So on a daily basis, you're working on probably 4 or 5 projects over the course of each day, and you're working, you might do a handful of shoots a year with, you know, different photographers. So yeah, it's interesting. It's not just photography, but I mean, I think the show's about photography.
Oh, yeah.
You end up working on a lot of film projects as well. You might work with artists and illustrators and writers and multimedia folks. But photography, I think I get the most joy out of. So I think that's why I'm excited to be on this cast.
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk about movies in just a minute. Definitely want to ask that of Mr. Rick Friedman. But before we go on to him, I do want to bring up Mike Sharky James. Mike, I don't think we've seen you since episode 100. You're like our anniversary guy.
I will only do if you somehow make it to 200. Then I will do 200 with you. But I'm Sharky James from the Petapixel Photography Podcast. Petapixel.com/podcast, or just type in PETAPIXEL. you've probably seen it once or twice.
Yeah.
In your feed.
Yes, indeed.
So there you go. Former photojournalist. I've now been out of the game for just over 5 years, and I'm not upset about that.
You shouldn't be. I mean, it's
gotten
a tough
even
game
crazier.
to be in.
It is. So there you go.
Nice. What's been new with you in terms of the Petapixel Photography Podcast?
Not much. Same old, same old. We just hit episode 303.
Congratulations.
So this thank you. This Christmas will be 4 years since I started the old show, the Lens Shark Photography Podcast, which then became Petapixel, and pow, one of the most listened to photography podcasts in history. And there's only been like 12, 13 years of podcasts, so we can say that. But it's true.
No, that's great. That's awesome achievement. I mean, 300 of anything is pretty great. And, again, I know how much work you put into each episode. So, I mean, that's probably, right there, months worth of
who
actual
listens
work.
Of this group? I'm sorry to step all over you. Of this group, who listens? You, David. Who else?
Of course.
I'm a big listener. In fact, it's on my drive in every time I get a chance. That's what I put on. Unfortunately, it's only like gets me halfway there, so I get a little upset because sometimes I have to bank 2 episodes. But honestly,
lately,
whoever's not listening needs to listen because it's there's only a couple like really good podcasts out there, especially on photography. One which I won't even mention, which knows. That's all I'll say. Which you don't listen to, and then. Then there's this one, which is absolutely, it's quick, concise, humorous, always deals with the latest topics, and is entertaining beyond what it should be, and it's fabulous. It's just, I truly, truly enjoy it. I really do.
Awesome.
And if you like the Petapixel Photography Podcast, you should also listen to the No Name Photo Show by Mark Sharky James. Because it's just
They're
a great extension.
already for you.
It's a great extension of what you're doing over there. So you started that show this year as well, right?
That was a little over a year ago. We haven't done it in a while. Brian Matias is my co-host, and he and his wife, Nicole S. Young, you probably know them. They just moved back to Portland after being gone. They were in Portland. They moved to Nebraska. They decided Nebraska wasn't rich with photo opportunities, and they moved back to Portland. So he's been shooting a lot. We haven't done that in I don't know, a couple months maybe.
Oh, no.
On hiatus. We just do it whenever.
Okay. Well, if Twit or TWIP can take a year off, or take multiple years, I don't know how long TWIP was off for at least a year.
Yeah. That was a little year. I was supposed to be on episode 500 of theirs, and then episode was when we went poof.
They couldn't figure out a way to bump you, so they just stopped for a year.
Well, if TWIP can take a hiatus, the No Name Photo Show can take a hiatus. So I'm sure you come back just ready and stronger than ever.
Let's hope.
All right, Sharky. We're glad to have you on. Hopefully we get the Sharky bump again tonight. It's always great to have that bump for the show and get some new subscribers. It's like a hockey stick each time you're on, so always glad to have you. All right, let's go to our most recent guests. Well, actually, Rick, I want to let you talk and introduce you because you're the person who hasn't been on. I think Sharky hasn't been on since at least episode 100. I'm not sure the last time you were on, but
I think since I was on with Sharky.
There you go. Now, to any of our audience who is watching the show live, the limitations of my software only allow for 6 live video streams. So unfortunately, Rick, you are not in the video stream.
No,
I can't seem to adjust that.
Office.
You do. I can see your office on Skype, but unfortunately the viewers, I can't show you, but it's a beautiful office. He has a lot of great magazines. But Rick, we were talking earlier today. You have been doing some really exciting stuff. Why don't you go and tell us a little bit about what you've been doing over the past, since the last time we had you on?
Yeah, a lot of different things. I spent the summer doing a lot of movie stills, which my training as a photojournalist I think really helps. You have to work fast, see the picture, work fast, and stay out of the way. So we did a lot of that, and in addition, doing a lot of portraiture for some magazines. And I just recently returned from a story that I shot in South Africa at a place called Lions Rock, which is a big cat rescue reserve. So they go around the world and rescue these large animals they rescued something from Aleppo during the bombings. Wow. They've gone into several places in war zone where obviously if 2 groups are fighting, they're not really caring about the zoo animals. And these poor animals have been left to die. And these amazing people go in, rescue these cats. They actually arrange for brief ceasefires. Go in, rescue the cats, and bring them out. You know, think about taking your cat to the vet. Now thinking about taking a full-grown male lion, you know, halfway around the world. You know, you can't just go to Delta and say, I'd like to ship this. So they have all sorts of challenges. And then eventually the cats get to this place called Lions Rock in South Africa, which is about a 3-hour drive south of Johannesburg. And you're pretty much out in the middle of nowhere. And these animals, you know, these animals can never be released into the wild because they've always been bred in captivity. But they now have the ability to run. They're in huge pens. And it's just an amazing thing to see what the cats look like when they arrived, some of them, and what they look like today. They're really thriving. So we shot that story, and then after that we went and photographed on a safari for 6 days up at Mala Mala, which was absolutely amazing.
Nice.
Camp I've ever stayed in. When you walk out of your room, there may be an elephant walking by. It's terrific. There are no fences. Great thing. And we came back from that, and this was sort of, to me, one of the odd changes, where I went from being in the bush in South Africa, and 6 days later, I was speaking at the Tamron booth at Photo Plus. About, you know, one end of the world to the other, going from the bush to the Javits Center in the middle of Manhattan.
That's the real jungle there.
You know, I felt a lot safer with the lions running by. I really did. You know? And it was incredible. I had a great time at Photo Plus. It was nice to do some work with Tamron. So we've been up to that, and then Saturday I leave and fly to Dubai. And I'm going to be speaking at Exposure, at the Exposure International Photo Festival in Sharjah, United Arab Emirates. And we went last year and taught location lighting, and they very nicely invited us back. So we're going to head back to Sharjah, and we have a group of people, and I don't know, go out into the old city or maybe go out into the desert and bring a bunch of lights and teach people how to light. And bring, I guess, some long extension cords if we're in the desert. No, I think we'll probably be using the new Pro Photos. It's a lot easier than running miles of extension cord through the desert. So, been doing that, and like I said, fortunately, you know, the magazine assignments keep coming in, and it all still beats the heck out of having a real job.
Indeed.
No, like the luckiest in the world. I describe it. We get paid to run around the world, play with our toys, and hang out with fascinating people, or big cats. So it's a little bit of what we've been up to here and from Boston when we're here, which isn't very often. So anyway, it's an honor to be on with everybody. Thanks for having me, Dick.
Definitely. Very happy to have you, Rick. And I want to let any aspiring freelance photojournalists out there know that results may vary.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, welcome to the high-paying world of photojournalism.
I just don't want anybody going into the world of photojournalism thinking, oh, well, I'm going to be like that Rick Friedman and go to Dubai and go on a movie set and go on a wildlife refuge or whatever. But
you
no,
probably have a better chance at podcasting these days.
The high-paying world of podcasting.
Let me ask something, Rick. You know, obviously with the advent of all these new Micro Four Thirds cameras coming out there, you talked about shooting on movie sets. Are you shooting with one of those like big blimpy sort of whatever they're called coverings, or are you?
I shoot with a Sony.
Okay.
Sony changed it all.
Yeah, I just, you know, when I still show up on sets, and you know, I have to go up to the sound guy and I say, look, this is what I'm shooting with, and they went, oh no, you can't be photographing while we're filming, and it's like, please put on your headphones. I'm going to hold this camera right next to the microphone and listen carefully. And then the guy looks at me with an annoyed face and goes, well, are you going to test the camera? And then I show him the picture of him that I just shot. No, it's, I mean, there are certain things, you know, I find certain cameras are better for certain jobs. For news, I love my Nikons. They're just terrific. But you can't take an 850 or a D5 and go on a movie set. Well, you can, but only once. They're not going to let you come back.
You can shoot all the photos you want between the call of cut and the next call of action. That's
yeah. After the actors have done the scene 25 times, they don't really want to do it again. And furthermore, as a photojournalist, we're supposed to get it on the first time.
That's right.
You know, it's not like we can turn to the president, you know, when you're covering him or at a news event and say, you know, excuse me, could you do that again?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, please.
No, I was going to say, I mean, you know, again, we were talking about mirrorless, obviously, and we were talking about the fact that you're shooting with electronic shutter, which is a great advent of the mirrorless, you know, revolution. And I think one of the best features of mirrorless cameras, or one of the top features. and it all made me think. We're talking about news photojournalists, and I just imagine, the next president. When they do the president's, shaking hands, and then the Oval Office, and it being dead silent because everybody has mirrorless cameras.
They hear something, as opposed to the D5s where you can't hear anything.
Yeah. I'd be curious to see if that's going to be,
it's
by that time.
It's actually kind of funny that you say that. I've shot on the movie sets before, and when you have it on silent, it's fantastic. You can shoot anywhere. But then when you have to take the actor off to the side and actually shoot a portrait, when they don't hear that shutter, they're like, they actually get worried. So you almost turn it back on just to make them feel comfortable, because they actually really kind of like, what's going on? Are you shooting? So you turn it on just to be so they feel comfortable.
My approach is not only with the actors, but I do this with a lot of subjects, as long as it's not an actual news event, that once I have an image that I really like on the camera, I'll go show it to the subject and say, what do you think of the photograph we are creating? Because I'm not just creating the photograph. I can't create it without them. So in reality, we are creating the picture. And then I find people get more into it. With actors, they know what to do, but try doing that with a scientist. You have to get them involved. And living in Boston, you photograph a lot of scientists. So anyway, that's part of one of the things that I do a lot.
Indeed. All right, Rick. Well, we'll talk more about that as we get in later on the show. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Glad to have you back.
Pleasure.
Let's introduce our two most recent guests who were on actually last week's show. Travis, we'll start with you. How you doing, Travis?
I'm doing great. It feels like it's been months. I think I've worked 30 days in the last 31 days, but it's been fantastic. So I'm glad to be back, and especially on such a great episode as this. And congratulations on it.
Thank you very much. Remind people who may not have watched last week's episode who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm someone that found photography. About 4 years ago, I switched over. I used to own nightclubs, and I used to work on film and TV, but kind of left it all and found my passion in photography. Wake up happy every day now, but so lucky to work in editorial stuff, magazine stuff, to working on films, to a lot of charity stuff for Big Brother, Big Sister, Robin Hood. So I get to kind of do it all and do some wonderful things. And I think the last time we talked, I was shooting for Moves magazine, the Power Women of 2018, which was actually the shoot day was on the Kavanaugh hearing. So shooting all these incredible, strong women on that day was unbelievable. And between shooting, we'd actually look at watch the hearings, and you see these strong women watching this, and it was I couldn't think of any better way to actually be on that day than working with those women. And just the other day, we had the gala for them, which was the awards gala, which gave all the awards to wonderful people like Poppy Harlow and Whole Foods, and just amazing people. But it was right after the election, so it was 100 women took the house, and it was unbelievable. Another great evening. So I've been busy, and the magazine just came out, which is kind of cool. So lots of spreads in there. So happy about that, and getting ready to do the Cuba trip with Bruce and Glenn, and doing a lot of other stuff too. But keeping very, very busy and very happy.
All right, great. You said you worked on film. Was that in front of the camera or behind the camera?
I know this looks like it should be in front of the camera, but no, I worked behind the scenes. I actually worked in film production for years. Prior, I went to NYU Film School, just School of the Arts, and worked on film production, got out of that and opened up clubs. And when I got back into photography, it was a logical step to kind of go back to set and shoot film and stuff like that. And the Sony is just unbelievable. It changed the game, what you can shoot and be right next to the camera and actually fire off shots, and it doesn't disturb anyone. It's a game changer. And part of what I do is a lot of social media branding and building brands, teaching them how to properly hashtag, build content, engagement, and all of that. So that's one of the other things I do.
Awesome. Great. Okay, well, final guest with us tonight is Mr. Bruce Byers. Tell us, Bruce, a little about yourself. Obviously, you're running the Cuba operations and bringing people over there, but tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Bruce Byers. I've been roaming the streets of New York and the world professionally since '75. Been on some movie sets, done some movies, but now I'm doing a lot of nonprofit work and corporate work, and have put together Camera Odysseys, which takes people around the world. And when I travel by myself, it's sort of like, that corner looks pretty neat. Let me see what's on the other side of it. And I've been able to create trips to do the same thing. Cuba has been one of my big places. Been there November with Glenn's coming with us. Will be my 18th trip to Cuba, and I got personal friends all over Cuba, so it's incredible to do that. But we've expanded into Bhutan and taking people into nonprofits into Sri Lanka. I'll probably go into Bangladesh in March with to follow a group of doctors into Bangladesh. It's following the world, going around the world, doing what I love to do, and letting other people pay for it, which is even better. And when I get a job, I'm going to retire and I could get my. But Camera Odysseys is my love right now, and we got a great trip in February that Travis, Glenn, and I are going on. So we'll be doing creative director, social media, street photography, and if you don't come back from that with beautiful trips, you must be. I mean, images. You were sleeping the entire time.
Oh,
so
yeah,
so that's what we're doing.
All right, great. Awesome. Well, we'll be highlighting all the great things you all are doing. We're definitely going to be highlighting it on the AroundTheLens.com website. Especially, Rick, I was talking to you earlier. I'd love to see, your photos from Africa and all the great things you're doing over there. So again, if any of you are doing awesome stuff, you want to see it highlighted on AroundTheLens.com, let me know. Send it over my way. I'd be happy to devote some time to it. We can promote it on our website and our social media and all the great things. And we'll talk about those stats in just a minute. You can see or laugh at where we're at as an organization. But before we go into that, I don't want to keep anybody waiting. Let's go ahead and announce the winner of the Exposure 15 camera bag. I know if I was waiting to know, I'd want to know as soon as possible.
A little drum roll.
A little bit of yeah, okay. Somebody do the drum roll. There we go. All right, so we had, let me just switch over to the, oh, no, wait, that's my son. Let's go to secondary display. Okay, so we had 7 entrants in the contest. So if you didn't enter, that was your loss. Again, you had pretty good odds. Pretty good odds here for our 7 folks. So all these people submitted a comment or a show idea or some guest suggestions. So even if you aren't picked as the winner of this contest, know that I will be trying to integrate your topics and your guest suggestions into season 4 of the show. And if I do, I'll make sure to give you a plug. All right, so good luck to the 7 of you. Let's pick the person who's going to win. And the winner is Dave Bottoms. Congratulations, Dave Bottoms. You're the tops. Bottoms is the top.
Oh, boy.
Anyways, congratulations. I'll be in touch with you to get your address and all that stuff so we can mail out your camera bag. Congratulations, and thank you for submitting a topic. His topic, by the way, was... He just actually was a last-minute ad. Pictures don't tell stories. This would make a terrific debate. I'm slowly working on an article about this topic. All right, well, Dave, if you make that article, send it my way. I'll be happy to put it on AroundTheLens.com. All right, congratulations, Dave. Let's get on with the show.
Tank to help out with this.
What was that, Rick?
So it was nice of Think Tank to help out with this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Think Tank.
That's true.
Bags. That's the only ones I use. I drag them around the world and beat them.
They really do last.
They really make terrific bags, and believe me, I've tried to kill a few of them, and I haven't succeeded yet.
Nice.
And, we just got, recently we got one of the ones they call Location Manager. I don't know if anybody's seen this thing, Location Manager 50. This thing, funny, I got this thing. I was talking to somebody at Think Tank, and they said, we want to, see how you use it. And my idea for them was, with this case, you can take everything you need for a successful photo shoot. That's picture 1, and picture 2 is you open it up, and my assistant is inside it.
Wow.
Anyway, great stuff.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Dave. All right, let's get on with the show. I wanted to kind of bring up some of the growth that we've seen as a company or as an organization. We're not really a company. We're more just, a group, a collective, just a bunch of dudes and ladies who get together and talk about visual journalism. And I started to compile some statistics. Let me see if I can pull that up. I can tell you we have grown as a podcast. last time we were doing this show, I think we were about 245 subscribers. We're now at about 457 subscribers, so almost
Congratulations.
doubled our audience. And then with regard to our Facebook following, last year around this time we were about the 220 mark, and now we're at the 320 mark. So, at that rate, we'll be profitable in about 100 years. So,
you hang in there.
But any growth is good, and really it's all about engagement. And I've definitely loved the engagement that I see from the audience coming in. We did recently surpass total downloads of about 36,000. So lifetime,
Impressive.
All the shows combined. I think that's what I think you do in one episode about that, Sharky, or less than that. That's probably about a third of what you do in an episode. I probably guess good.
I did that just while we were talking. What are you talking
There you
about?
Oh, you're
No,
cold.
listen. I'm living proof that, we don't talk about numbers, but I'm living proof that if you stick with it, good things could happen. I did my old show, the Lens Shark Photography Podcast, for 8 months. You start a show, you're talking to nobody. There's no one that knows you're doing a show. It's family and friends at that point.
Yeah.
And so I did that for 8 months, and it's really funny is when Petapixel approached me, I actually hadn't done a show in like 5 weeks.
Wow.
I wasn't just like not into it. I was just really busy with stuff, and it wasn't paying the bills, obviously. And then bam, it was, off to the races. And, we're in the solid 5 figures per episode and millions of downloads, and literally millions of downloads. And
Wow.
it's crazy.
No,
It's
that's great.
You just never know. You just be yourself, do you. I decided, I grew up listening to Howard Stern, and so you just be you. You got to be an original. So if you listen to my show, there's no one else does a show quite like mine. There was probably a reason for that, but for some reason it took off. It could have gone either way. So.
Well, that's a good point, and I want to ask you that, Sharky, since you've seen success in the platform. We have not obviously seen the same level of success. Again, I'm proud of any subscribers we have, but had you not seen success, would you have continued to push the Sharky, or I'm sorry, the Petapixel? Would you have continued to go down that route and do the show for yourself, or would you have abandoned the show and try and find something else that was more, would have gained popularity? So what I'm asking is, was your goal to make podcasting something that was, again, financially, or was it successful to a point where you could, earn money from it, or were you just trying to get something out there in the airwaves?
Absolutely. I don't know if I would have still done it if I was, X number of listeners. Obviously you have to pay the bills, but, I've told this story on my show before. You guys know Paul Giroux? He's a Sony artisan. He was with the Chicago Tribune and Arizona Republic. That's how I know him. When I got out of photography, almost like 20-something years ago, I sold my 300-2.8, my Canon 300-2.8 to Paul Giroux. So we were both much younger then, about 25 years ago. And the rest of my stuff through Patrick Murphy Racy, who's also a Sony artisan now, and those two are really good friends. And he had a service called PhotoFax. That's how, remember, a lot of photographers, pros would sell their gear through PhotoFax back in the day. This was pre-eBay and everything else, and Facebook and such. So when I got into it, I did it. I knew that I had something. I knew that I had something that could be, financially successful, at least pay the bills. And so I went for it. And you have to. If I had given up at month 7, none of this would have happened. Right. Petapixel came knocking in there, and if you listen to the old show, it's horrible. It's just why did anyone listen? Why did anyone go? Why did Michael Zhang from Petapixel go, hey, we want to team up with you? We want to partner. So we rebranded essentially, but the show's way better now than back then. It sounds like I'm on Dramamine, back in the early days. So if you listen to the show now, it's, we get some ratings and reviews on iTunes. Some people are like, oh, I love Sharky's voice. I love his energy. Other people are like, how does anyone listen to this guy? He's like making me, I'm triggered now. Like I gotta calm down. So, you just never know. Everyone can find an audience is the point. They might not find a big audience, kind of like this show. No, just kidding. Zach hates it when I do that, when I bag on this show. But no, you're super niche, right? So it can work if you niche down. A lot of people say to niche down. Mine's broad. Mine's a shotgun blast, right? Yeah. It's who's my avatar? All photographers. And that's not really good marketing right there. You're supposed to at least pick something, but all photographers. My show is open to all photographers. There you go.
I mean, that's something, I think about sometimes is, because it is niche, because there is limited growth, that, I'm obviously in a specific market that has only so many people in it, but, I think
shrinking by the day too.
by the hour.
Photojournalism shrinking. Go ahead.
Indeed. No, absolutely. And, again, it's something I think about. Is this, should I be continuing to push in this direction, or should I, switch directions, either the focus of the show to make it more broad or appeal to a different category? But, I do look at like different areas, like for instance, different photojournalism Facebook pages have like 10, 20,000, subscribers or whatnot. I think there's still growth potential in the platform and the show. I just don't know if it's, again, I always examine, is this the platform I should stay with? Should I expand it? Should we change the topics? What can we do to make the show better, reach more people and stuff like that? And so, ultimately, if I change the focus, then it changes what the show is all about. But I don't know. I think around the lens...
You've got to do... Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say around the lens as a concept could be expanded. It could be made more general, but I don't know. I think about that
your
all
numbers
the
are
time.
going in the right direction, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. There is growth. That's
you could change... Some of the people that have left, iTunes reviews said, this show is, he's been doing it for like a few years now. It'd be nice if he changed the format. Back in the day, right? We grew up on Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley. They didn't change like, midway, and all of a sudden they're like a drama, right? So you got to pick something and go with it. And if you're happy doing it, then stick with it. Same with photojournalism. If it doesn't make you happy, then you got to, it's not going to make you a lot of money.
We did get the term jump the shark from Happy Days, though.
Indeed.
That's true.
When did Around the Lens jump the shark? Or have we jumped the shark yet? We've jumped the Sharky, but that's...
Jump the shark.
Sharky jumped the show.
But, obviously, I'm not the only person who has, like, entrepreneurial sort of take. I mean, for instance, Bruce, your Cuba trips, how did you start that? Was that something, that grew over time, or was that successful immediately? And how did you sort of develop that over time?
Well, I went down to I had been photographing a town up in Connecticut for literally 14 years, and I put together a show of the work in 5 different galleries in the town, and it was all of the people of the town, and 10 people showed up, and it was pictures of them. And from there, I started documenting medical missions, just literally getting on an airplane and hopping off the airplane in friggin' Bangladesh or Cambodia and just saying, okay, now what do I do? And in 2010, I went down to Cuba with a friend of mine who had a business license. So for $250, I paid him to use his license, went down there, and just literally roamed the streets. And it was like, oh, this is incredible. We should put together, a workshop with photographers. Well, he was kind of on the just go bring people down there and visit. I was on bring photographers down to visit, and we didn't mesh. So about a year later, we split off, and we went into, I developed Camera Voyages, and that started building. We did a number of trips to Cuba. We did them to Bhutan, and a difference of an opinion. We went 2 different ways, and then I went back at it again with Camera Odysseys, and said, hey, I'm going to take this a little bit different and develop it, and that's where I brought in Travis and Glenn to bring in other elements that we felt photographers needed. But I tell you, I sit here at my desk trying to figure out how to get someone on the trip, who to get to promote it, who to partnership with, and sometimes I go, what the hell am I doing? How do I restart? How do I kick this whole thing into something else, or do I just stay with it? And right now, hopefully, Glenn and Travis are hanging in there. We're looking at producing a trip to Cuba that people will just absolutely walk away with great images and a great time, and that will be our new model as we go on to develop. And just like the podcast, you just got to hang in there. It's really hang in there tough, and drink rum.
You should have started with that, Bruce.
I did.
There you go.
He drinks lots of rum.
So, Bruce, are you suggesting we take the show to Cuba? Would that make us more effective, do you think?
That would be incredible.
Can't hurt.
Okay.
That
All right. You heard it.
if
Dave.
we
That's it.
could-
That's our next move, buddy.
well, David mentioned that we should do video to show people what a trip was all about. And we have a young woman by the name of Claudia Paul, who is going to be with us to create a video. She's going to be doing pieces throughout the November trip. And hopefully we will bring it back to you and let you see what the nitty-gritty of Camera Odysseys is all about.
Great.
Look
Look forward to seeing that.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, great. For you, Sharky, anything we should be expecting from you in the pipeline? From again either podcasting perspective or expanding upon the Sharky James sort of mystique and channel. Are we gonna see?
I gotta sleep sometime, right?
No.
I don't think we're gonna expand into anything different. We're just, I took on the No Name Photo Show, and that takes up a lot of time. But we're on hiatus, so it's only so much you can do.
Right.
Got to get out and shoot every once in a while, right?
Absolutely.
So.
Awesome. All right, great. Well, let's go ahead and move on to some topics that we've selected for news this week. Of course, the big news is the White House deciding or making the decision to expel Jim Acosta from the press pool. Obviously, it's a controversial decision. A lot of people have had thoughts on both sides of it. Let me throw it out to you as the panel here. What do y'all think of this? What are your thoughts on it? Anybody who wants to go first?
Wow, this is the big one, huh? This could take up a whole episode.
I know.
Yeah, really.
It's sort of, you say every single day, I can't believe, but it just every day is something more that you can't believe. And imagine if the actual sides were flipped and Acosta said stuff like you're a loser and you shouldn't be working for the United States, and you're a disgrace and they shouldn't hire. That's what you want to say, but he's actually being a respectful journalist and actually doing exactly what he's allowed to do and ask questions. He didn't assault anyone, he didn't do anything, and just because the president doesn't like the questions is no reason to have your credentials removed or taken and banned, suspended from the White House and pull his hard pass. And it's a scary state. The press is actually the fourth. And usually it's the people in the press that, when we get into situations like this, that protect us, because Congress isn't doing it, Senate's not doing it, and certainly not the presidency's not going to do it. So it's a frightening time.
Yeah,
and that video was doctored.
I was going to say, somebody who's covered a lot of politics. My first presidential campaign, this is how old I am, was Carter.
Wow.
And I've covered everyone since Carter, and the next one is starting. This is absolutely unbelievable. The White House is trying to control what the media says, and if they don't like what we say, they're going to pull your tags. And there's, what's that thing called? Oh yeah, the Constitution. There's something about freedom of the press in there. I remember, not to joke about it, but it's unbelievable. And as I covered his campaign. I didn't cover the entire thing, but I spent a certain amount of time on it. And there were things on the campaign that I have never seen in any other campaign, where not only are we penned in the back, but, the Secret Service guys are there. Somehow they've been told to make sure that we don't move. There were many cases, long after he was gone, they were still holding us in pens. And the journalists, the TV guys, are like, we got to get out and file. And I'll never forget, there was one time where one of his staff people yelled out, "Can we release them yet?"
Oh, jeez.
And the guy wasn't president. It didn't look like he was going to become president. But from the very beginning, that was, let's control the media. They were, there have been many times where members of the media have been roughed up, especially early in the campaign. Having Secret Service was better than not having them. But there were times you'd go through the audience and people would be throwing elbows at you. I mean, it was sort of an amazing thing. I mean, I had a picture that ended up running as a double truck in Time. And Trump had done, look at all those horrible, evil people on the press riser. And he's pointing at us, and he tells everybody to turn around and start pointing at us and yelling at us. Well, it's a great time to have a wide-angle lens because it really made quite a good photograph. But, there was sort of that built hatred that we are the enemy. And we are not the enemy. Our job is to tell the story and actually keep our personal opinions out of the story. Unless you're writing an editorial, our personal opinions have to stay out. We cover it, we submit it to the publication we're working for, and then hopefully the editors choose a picture that is non-biased. But as photojournalists, we have to choose non-biased pictures. Anyway, one other thing I thought was very interesting, there's a movie that just came out about the Gary Hart campaign.
The front runner.
Yeah, it's unfortunate you can't actually see what my office looks like, but I actually shot a picture of Gary Hart that ran on The Economist to make a little royalty out of it. But, that campaign, even when, candidates didn't like us, they didn't try to control us. There have been many presidential candidates that I have said that I have liked their politics, but I very much got to like them as people.
Yeah, he's brought it to a whole nother level.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, I mean,
to call him enemy of the people and to have so vilified, and he's putting the people's lives in danger. He's truly putting the press's lives in danger.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's that I've never gone to events where we have been vilified. Even events where extreme opposite end of the spectrum.
Do you feel like it's to the point you need security?
Yeah, it's just not quite in the budget
to cover some of those. No, that's the point. It's not covered.
No, it's not covered. And I mean, if you get roughed up, that's tends to be your problem. So, and again, I've never.
You don't expect to be a war journalist covering politics at home.
Really, war journalist in D.C. No. By the way, if you're into presidential politics, the photojournalism end of it, I'm going to give a plug for a friend of mine's book. There is a book called Presidential Picture Stories, which is about people who have covered the presidents. And there are some very amusing anecdotes in there. It's put together by a longtime photojournalist, Dennis Brock. And it's just, if you're a political junkie or a photojournalist, it's a really great fun read. So, and a lot of it talks about happier days. So,
but one thing that a lot of people don't realize, because they're not from New York, where good old Donald Trump is from New York.
Couldn't have kept him in New York.
We wanted to get rid of him a long time ago. The biggest problem when it comes to Donald Trump is his ego. And when he was the quote developer in New York, and luckily there was a strong enough city council that didn't allow developers to become city employees, so the developers couldn't build a city project. They were crossing over. Uh-huh. But if you went up against Donald Trump would say, peon, get his lawyer after you, get his thugs after you, and you pushed away. So we didn't do anything with Trump. We just let Trump do his shit, and whatever he did, he did. Now, there are a lot of people that believe in the Second Amendment, not that New York doesn't believe in it, and they're voicing their opinion. And he's sitting there playing developer in New York and thinking that it's not we the people. It's me, the Trump. And that's the way he was in New York. It wasn't, I love New York. It's, I love Trump. So nothing's going to change. And you get the Senate and the Congress, a bunch of wimps they should be protecting the people they represent, but they're not. They're protecting the Trump that they feel they have to follow. So
hopefully
And
some
that's
of
what
that
makes
will
the press
change.
so important
I'm
to
hoping
keep the checks and balances going.
I say one of the things, when looking at Trump and the media, I mean, I've never seen hostility in the White House press room like you see now. I mean, the journalists used to compete. Now they're sort of, in many ways, getting together, kind of almost protection in numbers. But it's, who's ever at that podium is just, I don't know how they can stand. I don't know how Sarah, Huckabee Sanders can look out at everybody and just blatantly lie. And I spent a lot of time with her father when he was running. And, he was somebody I might not have liked politically, and I can't listen to him on the radio now. But he was a very nice person to be with. But anyway, the whole thing is quite amazing that, if we say something that's not true enough times, will it become true? And I think there's a certain amount of their trying to do this. So what's that saying? We used to joke about this, don't let reality get in the way of a good story. We used to joke about it. I think they've taken that to a new level.
Well, and I think that the only way to deal with Trump is for the journalists to be true to journalism and stick. And it's just as we're talking about with your podcast being successful because you stuck with it. So as the professional journalist has got to be non-biased and has got to stick with it and keep taking the pictures, keep reporting the stuff, and not give a crap that they're yelling and screaming at him. And I think that, unfortunately, Trump isn't smart enough to stand up there and go, sorry, can't answer that, and then just keep his mouth shut.
Well,
He's got to respond. He's got to give out some garbage response. He can't just say, nope, sorry, I won't respond. That's his Second Amendment. Or First Amendment. He won't respond, but he doesn't. His ego takes over.
I think that's part of one of the main problems is we've made news a 24-hour entertainment instead of making it journalism. I mean, when you report the same thing over and over and you give that much time to a certain person nonstop, you look at all the news, honestly, around the world, if you watch MSNBC, CNN, Fox, any of them, are you really seeing what's going around in the world? No, it's 24/7 Trump. It's 24/7 fiasco. You don't see what's going on actually day to day in the news. It's a whole different entertainment field now.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, it's refreshing to listen to BBC.
Yeah.
Because there is a world beyond, New York, Washington, and L.A.
Look at how the whole Khashoggi killing is like that should be still talked about. You don't hear about that anymore because we've had 17 crises since then.
Or the caravan.
Yeah. You don't hear about the caravan anymore.
No, the election's done. It's over. Except for those poor soldiers used as a prop, and they're going to miss Thanksgiving and cost us $200 million.
Yeah, where they should be in California fighting fires, not on the line when the caravan doesn't even exist anymore.
Yep.
That the whole thing with the fact that I have not heard our president talk about California and the fires is disgusting.
Well, no, he talked about it. He said that it was their fault.
It was their fault.
Yeah, it was their fault. But that was 4 fires ago.
No,
why?
It was this one. It was this one.
This one too.
He said they weren't taking care of the land, and it was totally preventable.
It was
mismanaged.
It was a campfire, and some power company made a mistake that started 2 of them. And they've already admitted to it, and they're figuring out what to do. But still, there was two accidents. There should be a friggin' air force of to make it rain out there. I mean,
well, unfortunately, it ties into, and you never want to get into another topic like this, but climate change and these storms of the century and these drying of the lands and all that are, these storms of the century. We've had 3 in the last 2 years, 4 or 5 maybe. It's just going to keep happening.
Let me ask you, Ron, what would Jeff Weiner say about the Jim Acosta situation? Jeff Weiner, of course, the famous friend of the show and also the Tank Man photographer, well-known Pulitzer Prize. No, he was a Pulitzer Prize nominee, I believe.
He was the nominee. He didn't win, right? But he was a good guy.
Well, what would he say about all this?
I don't know. You'd have to ask him. But I can give you the conservative perspective. I can say that. One thing I heard about Acosta from somebody who might possibly know is that he was a mic hog, and that some of the guys were glad to see him leave. Some of the guys in the press pool were glad to see him leave.
No reason to have his credentials pulled.
I understand. No, you're right. Mike Hogg is not a reason to pull a guy's credentials, correct?
No. Having been a freelance photojournalist my whole career, I know what it's like to be to go up against, the term is being big-footed by somebody who works for, some large publication, feels that they have the right to interfere with your doing your job. And we're out there as journalists. Nobody has the right to interfere with our doing our jobs. Maybe it's just because I've gotten older, but I actually don't see that anymore. I used to see it when I was younger. I find generally the press corps that I work with, people are very respectful. Most of the people care about the other journalists getting their photograph or getting their mic in there too. We used to joke about the line, I'm sorry for you New Yorkers, but this go back about 25 years where, you say in New York, it wasn't enough that you got your picture, you had to make sure your friends didn't get theirs. And I don't feel that's true anymore at all. I go to New York and work all the time, and people are incredibly nice. And, you'll go to an event and you'll see photojournalists taking a quick look over their shoulder to make sure they're not messing up somebody else's shot. And I find generally as a crew, we work together. You'll see photojournalists share equipment. Somebody's lens breaks in the middle of a shoot. The guy standing next to him go, here, I'm not using my 70-200. Go ahead and use it. Right. It's what goes around comes around in our or
you
in
can borrow my turtle.
I'm sorry.
You can borrow my turtle.
Yes. So anyway, I think as a rule we get along and work together very well. So and I've never had a fight over a microphone with Jim Acosta. So.
Yeah.
He's never gotten in my way. So
Glenn, have you had a chance to say anything about this topic? I don't know if you had anything you wanted to express about it before we moved on.
Travis, it is 24/7. I don't even know if I call it entertainment, frankly, any longer because I don't think it is. I just wonder, and I know this isn't the first time I've heard this. If you backed off of following every syllable that Trump makes, would anything change? It's the forest and the tree thing. If the forest falls, does anyone hear it? Kind of thing. I just wonder if the media is their own enemy in that regard. I don't know that everyone needs to see everything he does and every tweet and all that stuff. If you almost avoided it or ignored it just just as a test, I'm curious to see if he did it for a week, would his head explode? And would he want would he want journalists to be involved and almost pull them back into the fold so that and let them be the way they wanted to be? I just wonder that because everyone I know certainly, and maybe I don't know if it's a New York thing or not, but people have stopped listening. And what's what you said, Travis? The surprise of what he's done this time, and then tomorrow it's going to be something even more surprising. I'm talking to people who are not surprised at absolutely anything. And they become so numb. I find it terrifying that I'm numb at what he did to Acosta, you know what I mean? And just to shove him aside. But I didn't even blink going, okay, there he is again, doing what I expect him to do. So I just wonder, as just a psychological test, if we just ignored him for even a day, what would happen?
I think something bad would happen. I think it's better we don't try that.
Well, how much worse is going to get?
Well, I don't know.
Let's find out.
Well, I think all this noise and him doing stuff as he did to the press, all this noise is hiding an awful lot of stuff, little stuff that's underneath that's getting through that nobody's watching, like $1 trillion in debt that we've gone deeper in. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about all these things that he signed into quote law without anybody else. So the fact that he signed it has allowed companies to do whatever the hell they want. Nobody's checking up to see if anybody in the Senate or the Congress voted on any of this crap. The companies are just now doing whatever they want because he signed a piece of paper. That's not right. So all this noise, yes, I think that if some of this noise was, report on it for 10 minutes and then go to something else. Crash it all into, don't sit there and have 4 panelists on for an hour. Next hour, the same panelist. Next hour, shake it up.
But Bruce, I think that's my point. Change the topic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As opposed to 24/7 of the same information, which just everyone just becomes dull to the noise, so to speak. He's counting on that, I think, so that everything gets around. It's a magic trick, right?
It's
he's keeping the audience looking one way when he's doing everything else. It's misdirection. So I don't think it's as hard as it is, but no one's doing it.
I think part of the problem is it's so out of the ordinary that you can't even get through a news cycle without something else happening. I mean, we had one of the most historic midterms, and the next day we're not even talking about them because of the firing of Sessions. I mean, it almost like he plans it so there's an event. Even if something huge happens, another event's going to happen, and everybody's going to lose focus, and the next event, and the next event, and the next event.
But it's working now, Travis, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
I'm sad to say.
Absolutely.
I thought we'd get smarter by now.
Can't argue with results.
You mentioned the midterms. I thought that's a good point because largest, I think, ever amount of people who voted in midterms. Over 100 million people voted, the largest turnout ever for a midterm election in our history. Let me ask the panel here, for who was this the first time you've ever voted in a midterm? Because it was my first time ever voting in a midterm. Was it anybody else's first time?
No.
Okay. Well, I guess
You're the only bad one.
I'm the only bad guy.
No, it's good. It was a good one. You got out there.
Well, he voted. That's true. It's good he voted, right?
I did vote. So I'll be voting in every election nowadays. So,
but I will say this
it's tough for me though because again I'm not geographically in my state. So every time I vote, it's kind of an ordeal, having to go through the mailing election process and stuff, and it can be something where if you don't dedicate time to it and are very dedicated to actually getting it done and filling out the paperwork and getting it in on time and all that stuff, it can be very easy to let it slide. So.
They don't make it easy to vote. We can do multi-million-dollar online banking, but we can't cast a vote.
Right.
I say we just give it to Google. Let Google handle it. That's not dangerous.
Not Facebook.
Vote via Facebook.
A very interesting fact is that and luckily nobody said this because we were not going to be able to take over the House or the Senate because there were not enough Republicans up for re-election to make the numbers change. In the House, there were. So no matter how much we voted in the Senate or for the Senate or the Congress, we never would have changed it. So luckily, nobody said that, or they'd say, "Wow, what difference does it make?" And then we wouldn't have been able to do the House. Yeah. So the effect this time was very, very positive to get what we could change. We could change the House. We did it. We're not going to be able to change the other two. In another 2 years, then we'll be able to change it.
All right. Well,
because it'll be reversed.
Indeed. All right. Well, let's move on to our next few topics. We have, again, like I said, we could probably keep on talking about this for another hour, but we are coming to the hour point of the show, and I do want to kind of get us to a normal conclusion, but I do want to make sure we did hit a few of these topics. Free Photoshop clone online. I'm sure if you haven't already talked about this on the Petapixel Photography Podcast, you'll probably talk about it on the X episode, or if you maybe aren't going to talk about it, Sharky, but I thought it was pretty neat. Photopea. It's photopea.com, I believe. Let me just double check. Photopea.com, and it is really awesome. If you haven't had a chance to try this out, go give it a shot. If you're used to using Photoshop, it looks exactly like Photoshop. So much so that I'm surprised that Adobe hasn't, taken it down yet. I'm sure there's already a lawsuit incoming. But in terms of like being, capable and functional and being able to do what you want to do, so far I found it to be pretty robust. I mean, it has like the healing brush and it has like the magnetic lasso and a lot of these like high end sort of Photoshop related sort of editing tools. On here, and it's all web-based. You can access it from anywhere. We can get an internet connection, and for someone who does not use the Adobe products at all, this is great because it's more familiar, and it's like when I want to try and do some photo editing and don't want to try and mess with like GIMP and deal with the way that they have their setup. I think it's pretty great. Have any of you tried out Photopea?
Nope, I'm just looking at it right now.
I never heard about it before you put it on the notes there, Dave. And I took a look at it. I was on my phone, and it loaded up on my phone, and I probably could have done something with it on my phone. And then I never tried it on my laptop either. I'm a GIMP man too, so I don't. I mean, it's kind of. I'm welcome to any kind of option you have for a web-based solution to instead of buying software. Free web solution is a great idea. Did you try it? Did you like it?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. What I love about it is you can open up PSD files. I mean, so that's like the biggest thing. I know there have been some other online-based photo editing software, but I don't know if they could open up PSDs. So I think that's the biggest thing is that, if you have PSDs from that workflow, you can take it in here. And if you're maybe on a computer wherever in the world and it doesn't have Photoshop on it, at a minimum, at least you have this, so you can do some editing.
It's good to have options, and if it it's free, right? So the cost is great, and hopefully they keep developing it. So I pay $50 a month for the whole Creative Cloud suite because I need Audition and all these other things. And
$50 though.
Yeah, well, there you go. But something like this, most of these things that are in there so far get the job done. There's layers, there's curves, there's all that, right? So for most people, that's if you're doing like heavy compositing. You probably want Photoshop, but for everybody else, this is it's like a word product, right? Like Microsoft made so much money on Word back in the day, and now everyone's got a word processor. So,
well, you get one for free off Google or any of those other a lot of free platforms.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, I'll definitely see myself using this for at least some definitely trying out some photo editing or maybe doing some more high level graphic stuff. Like for instance. Every time I do this show, I try doing graphic that go with it, and I've been using GIMP for that, but I may try using this for that. If this can get the job done, and again, it's in that same sort of familiar setup and layout, then I might be using it more often.
Any good competition that keeps people innovating is also great.
Oh yeah,
that's for sure.
I mean, I'd love Adobe to make something like this. I mean, I don't think Adobe has any web-based platforms. It's all. You have to download the multi-gigabyte software or whatever for your computer, and you have to have all the stuff on it. But yeah, any other thoughts? Anybody else have any thoughts on this software before we move on? All right, great. Well, speaking of Adobe, Adobe is coming out with Photoshop for the new iPad, or for any iPads, I guess. They're coming out with the full version of Photoshop. If you've been following all the iPad news, of course. They've come out with new iPads this year, just a few weeks ago. Oh, is that it? Oh, Travis, you got yourself new iPad with the new magnetic iPencil. Pretty nice, pretty nice. I also got myself a 12.9-inch iPad right here. I got myself a brand new used 2017 iPad, 12.9-inch. I went with last year's model because, as much as I love the new 2018 iPad, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. I love what they've done with the new magnetic and the magnetic attaching with the pen and everything. It's a great tablet, but it's still an iPad and it's still hindered by its iOS. And I figured, from a usability perspective, I'm going to get the same basic usability with the new one versus the old one. But with the old one, I saved about $300 off the price of what it originally cost, and it was about half the cost of the new iPad 12.9-inch with 64 gigabytes.
These new ones can deal with a 3 gigabyte file with no lag, supposedly. So that's incredible. Think about how big of a file that is. That's layers upon layers, a ginormous file with no lag on an iPad. I mean, that's crazy. That's amazing.
I can throw in a Sony, from my A7R3, 42 meg file and work with it, no problem.
So you've done that already?
Yeah.
Nice. Are you? I'm sure you'll get the. Well, I mean, you have an iPad or you have an Adobe account. I'm guessing right now you pay for an Adobe subscription.
Yeah, I actually have two.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I got the $50 one that covers everything, and then I had a couple other computers that I had to throw Photoshop and Lightroom on, and it only gives you a couple computers on that, so I had to throw the $10 photo membership on there, subscription.
All right, so you'll be getting the Adobe Photoshop in 2019, right, when they release that for the iPad, I'm sure.
It's pretty incredible.
No, I've been really impressed. I mean, you can do 4K video editing, like no big deal. I mean, LumaFusion is a great program if you want to do some video editing. And I've thought about that, but I mean, again, it's like you come to the size limitation of the iPad you're getting, and it's like unless I'm willing to shell out $2,000 for a 1 terabyte iPad Pro, I just don't see myself doing tons of video editing.
This is the one terabit that I got with Wi-Fi and LTE, and I have the Dell 2-in-1, which is fantastic, and I think the reason I got this, which is kind of ridiculous to have both, but this is actually a fantastic daily device. I mean, you can take this anywhere and do almost anything on it, and even shoot tethered if I had to it, and it's just that it fits in my bags. I can take it anywhere. It's just like sort of the ultimate portable device where you're not going to take your laptop everywhere. This you actually can take with you and throw it in a bag, which is pretty much why I take it.
Well, I mean, obviously, you got the highest. Was it the 11-inch or the 12.9 inch?
12.9.
Okay, so you got the highest spec, highest cost, over $2,000 you spent on everything, more than that.
Well, luckily I have an APA discount.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Get a little discount with APA at Apple, so got that. And actually, it's funny. The day it came out, there was only one store in all of the New York area, and that was in Staten Island, that had this one spec device. Only one, and I actually drove there and got it.
But I mean, again, you're talking about spending $2,000 for a computing device, give or take. Is this going to be like? Are you replacing your laptop, your desktop with this? Do you think you can use this as an actual computer? Can this be your daily driver, or do you think you're still going to have to go to your main computers? And if so, does that now, again, if you can't make it your main machine, but you're still spending, the equivalent of, again, a high-end sort of laptop, desktop, is there a balance there?
Yeah, the only thing it's not replacing is when I go on location shoots and studio shoots and have to shoot tethered. That's when I'll still bring my laptop, because they just haven't put the Capture One or Photoshop onto this, and that's a limitation of the iOS, I think, and it can be solved. Especially this thing's a beast that can actually run things, but it's a little ways away from doing what a laptop can do.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else going to get the new iPads or iPads in general? No. For
so
sure.
What a lot of art directors are doing now. I haven't gotten it yet, but what they're doing now, instead of sketching, basically, so a lot of the work that we do when we do conceptual work on ideas for ads or any kind of medium is to possibly just draw it out traditionally, with markers and all that stuff. But now a lot of art directors are switching over to that because the brushes and the pencils look so much like it's done by hand that you can just draw it, be like Travis, like you were saying, you can put it in your bag and be anywhere you want, and then send it to yourself, the drawing, and then just print it out. And so I don't know that anyone will be touching pen to paper again, which is kind of interesting. It's not that different in a sense because you're drawing right on it, so I guess the same hand feel, and eye coordination hasn't really changed. But what was interesting, not so much for photography, but for art direction, is all the series of brushes and multi-mediums that you can do, whether it's pencils or markers, look so much like the original that almost no one can tell any longer. So that's going to change in advertising, at least.
It also when it comes to actually doing the photo pictures, to be able to sit down with the 12-inch and pull in the pictures from people's cameras is a really great thing, and to drag a laptop into some of the places that I go is like really crazy. And because everybody wants to see, but I don't know if the journalist is going to pull it out of his pocket while he's getting kicked out of the White House. So do you think that'll happen? Wait a second, let me get it on my iPad.
It's a pretty killer device for travel. I mean, to have my Sony and I can just boot up, play memories and just transfer the file immediately over to the iPad and throw it into 5 or 6 different things, from Snapseed to even Photoshop, or Lightroom, and have that as a travel device on a great screen that's that powerful. It's pretty awesome to travel with.
Can you plug in an external drive into that?
You can, yes, there are things you can do, and also you can actually plug it to a 4K monitor immediately. You just with the C-type, you just can hook it up to a monitor right out of it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's one of the limitations they talked about, is you can't just plug in a USB-C hard drive and expect to use it. And so that's kind of a big deal, especially if you're trying to, use it like a computer, right?
It will recognize recognized like photo files and stuff like that, and certain things. And the Narbox that's coming out, the new one, you can actually be able to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there are some workarounds. There are some Wi-Fi server type things where you can connect a hard drive and use an app on the device, and it can make it work. But it's, yeah, I think, again, looking at it, it's like if it was less limited, I think it could definitely be something where I'd be more willing to shell out the high-end dollar amount. For me, though, I mean, the last gen model gets 90% of the way there. You're just a little bit power limited, but even then, I mean, besides full, Photoshop and editing, maybe I can't edit a 3 gigabyte file. Maybe I can edit a 2 gigabyte file. So, then that's, but again, I'm fine with last gen model. Again, saving the money. Also, I would tell people, unless you're planning on doing again super duper high, I would still wait until there's the programs out there that can really take advantage of the power. But that's just
there's better options out there. The Dell 2-in-1 with it has a Wacom touch sensitive pad. It flips into a tablet. I mean it's a power beast. You can pretty much do anything on it. I think if you're going to really want something to just travel with, it has the most options. That thing is unbelievable.
Indeed.
We live in great times. We've got options. Think about how things were done just 10 years ago. Insane.
Indeed. What? 10 years ago, we didn't even have iPads.
I miss shooting Chrome.
I remember when we had rock tablets and we had to chisel our pictures.
Oh, man. All right. Well, let's move on to our last topic this evening. There's nothing else on iPads. 8K video. It's obviously out there. There's cameras that can do it. Well, did you know that they have now 8K videos on the International Space Station and 8K video cameras? So we're getting our first 8K videos shot in space. I thought this was pretty neat. Obviously, I don't know anyone personally who has an 8K monitor or can actually see this in all its beautiful glory. But still, just knowing that it's being created, knowing that it's out there, I think is pretty neat. I think 8K is a neat medium, a neat format to play in, but I don't really know if it's all that practical or something we as a general public are going to be moving on to. But let me throw it out to you guys. Do you think this is impressive, and do you see yourself migrating to 8K when it becomes more mainstream?
No.
That's a no from Sharky. All right.
You want to think about that for a second?
First of all, how much can our eyes even resolve? I mean, can you even see the difference between 8 and 4K?
Details.
So what you're saying is 640K ought to be enough for anybody.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
480p for life.
480 by 360. No, I mean, when you shoot 8K, so you have more options. You can punch into it more, but you also have to have a really incredibly fast computer, a whole lot more hard drive space. People forget that. They get a new camera, for instance, shoots 40-something megapixels, and it's like, wow, Lightroom's slow. Photoshop slow. They forget that everything that needs to go along with it. So 8K, I don't know. You got to have thousands of dollars available to you if you want to play in 8K.
Travis, I want you to do it.
1080p sounds really old-timey now, though. That's how you know, right? That 1080p just full HD, as it's also known. That sounds super old-timey and limited. 4K is the sweet spot. Yeah.
Actually, I'll have an experiment I want Travis, you to take advantage of since you have the new iPad. I want you to get some 8K video. I want you to load it onto the new iPad and edit it in. Do you have LumaFusion?
No, I don't.
Yeah, we have iMovie. You have iMovie because that comes with everybody. So try and edit some 8K footage on your iPad and let us know how it goes.
I'll try it on Premiere Rush, their new program. They might be able to do it on that too.
Okay. I want to see what happens to the new state-of-the-art, super-duper fast iPad.
I got to tell you, though, watching the NASA video in 8K was pretty cool, especially when you take NASA, space, slow motion, 8K. That's pretty awesome. Anything in slow motion in space is pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I think it's neat to see, and I think it's going to be great archival material for the future. But what do you guys think of, again, 8K? I mean, I think, regardless of whether or not we want it, need it, can see it, resolve it, have the ability to view it, it's going to be something that the next phone manufacturer who wants to plant their flag and be known for something, they're going to push that limit. They're going to push the 5K, the 6K, the 8K, just so they can be the one that said they have that. I think we're going to get it whether we want it or not.
As long as they have the processor and the hard drive space in those phones to deal with it, then it's all good. As long as you can, once you can't deal with it, that's when it becomes a problem. It's always the bottleneck.
I don't think we can actually do a holodeck without 8K, so we got to do it.
I want 8K 360 3D. That's what I want. Glenn, from an art designer perspective, 8K is 8K something your customers, your clients, they want? Do they care about that?
I mean, it's funny that you say that because it came up about a week ago because we're doing a bunch of video assets for conventions and other things. And the cost was just too cost prohibitive. Yeah. Oddly enough. And they just didn't think that now. Yeah, absolutely. But I think the conversation was they didn't think people would really notice the difference. And can they justify the price change? You know, when people are in conventions and they're moving past monitors kind of quickly, is it worth the effort? And at the moment, the client that we worked with didn't feel that it was. It doesn't mean that down the road they won't when it becomes the norm. But for now, 4K they felt the quality was more than adequate.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the ways to look at it is that you can punch in and you can get additional content out of that. You know, something way off in the distance that you can then pull from it that makes it maybe worth it financially. But you'd have to test it out and see if it really is worth it to be able to punch in on something way out there. So
it's definitely some of the capabilities that are going to be interesting because you have some of these cameras now that can stream video podcasts and stuff like that, where you can actually take an 8K camera and preset different parts of that to be different camera angle. So it's going to go to this one, to that one, to that one. So you can actually use it to do multi-camera shots with one camera, which is kind of cool.
Very cool.
You know what I think is cool, and you bring up a good point about Sharky, about our devices and our platforms being able to resolve and handle this huge quantity footage. And I think to my Note 9 right here, which can shoot 4K 60. That's a milestone that even like the DSLRs and the medium format or the micro four, they're all these cameras they're trying to get to. I mean, we just talked about these mirrorless cameras, all these full frame mirrorless cameras. Panasonic is the only one that's saying they can do 4K 60 on a full frame sensor. So, again, I think that's interesting. And I think, we will get to that point where, our phones are able to manage that. I mean, you already got one phone here, 512 gigabytes. I mean, you got 1 terabyte phones coming up next. You got 2 terabyte phones. So I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen whether we want it or not. Do we need it? Probably not. I do love the extra information though, and if I can shoot in 8K, and I will probably shoot in 8K just because, hey, what's better than 4K footage of your kids growing up, but 8K footage of your kids growing up. So when the 8K TV comes out, I'll get that. We can all sit around and watch the kids, in that footage. I've always said it's like ever since my kids were born, again, when they were born, the accessibility to consumer grade level 4K was there. And so I've been able to shoot pretty much everything, my kids have done in 4K. So, again, their kids will shoot everything in 16K, but anyways.
I think at this point it's the on the content creator side, not the user end. Like I said, you're going to be a lot of people would shoot 4K and then they would downsample to 1080p to get like a more sharper, kind of clear thing. So I think this is a content creator show, right? So as content creators, we're going to be the ones that are going to be doing that stuff first, and it'll be delivered in probably whatever the next one down, because of those space limitations and the processor speed. Because you don't want to bottleneck it, right? You want it to 8K on a something that really should be running 4K really great. Just do the 4K.
Well, first is going to be military, porn, and medical, then us.
I was gonna bring that up. It's the porn industry that's leading everything, right? Are
you putting commas between those, or are you saying
military porn?
I think
word comma word.
Military medical porn is a big.
That's quite a fetish there, Travis, that you have. All right. Any other thoughts
so to speak?
Any other thoughts on 8K before we move on?
Don't do it. Yeah,
you gotta get to this point. What was the film with Arnold Schwarzenegger where the whole walls are becoming Total Recall? So you're gonna need 8K because they're just gonna paint on the nanoids on a wall, and the whole wall is gonna become a television screen. So you're gonna need 8K. So
every time I go to Costco and I see they got the latest and greatest TVs out there with HDR and 8K and whatever, and it's just like it's getting amazing. It's like, wow, I didn't know my eyes were that good to be able to see that right there, right? And I'm pushing 50, so.
Exactly.
Well, if you take off your glasses, Sharky, then you really can't resolve anything. So
I can't.
The new TVs, you will be able to.
Indeed. All right. Well, let's go close up this week's show. I want to give everybody the opportunity to plug whatever they want to plug. So let's start with you, Sharky. What do you want to plug? I can't imagine what you could possibly want to plug. What clothing item? What clothing item do you want to plug this week?
That was it's always 511 tactical.
Indeed.
Right? So great stuff for photojournalists. I've been even wearing it forever, but neither here nor there. The Petapixel Photography Podcast, of course, Petapixel. And then, hey, if you want to save, look, I've got some great sponsors, right? Kupo, Tenba, Ellen Chrome. If you want to save 20% off on all that, just go to lensshark.com/deals. I've got all the offer codes there. Follow me on social media. I mean, people are saving literally thousands of dollars because I get the greatest codes. So there you go.
Hey, if any of those sponsors want to tap in to an extremely small audience, but dedicated, small but dedicated, small but mighty, you ship them over my way, Sharky. All right, just let them know.
I can't complain. I mean, Satanic. I mean, you name it, right? So you guys, you know my sponsors.
Huge sponsorship opportunity to Around the Lens. We have no sponsors, so you could be the first to sponsor Around the Lens. Come on, who wants to be the first sponsor of this show? I'm waiting for you. I'm standing by.
Oreos.
I'll take Oreos. Heck yeah.
That's right.
The official
their money's as good as everybody.
The official visual journalism podcast of Oreos. All right, Glenn, you're our newcomer. Where do you want people to go to find out either more about yourself or something you want to promote?
Well, I mean, the reason for coming onto the show really was in working with Bruce and Travis. You know, I met both of these guys through the APA, the American Photographic Artists, and the trip to Cuba, it just really excites me. I had a chance to go with Bruce for my first time. It's close to 2 years ago, and I don't think I was ever as excited to shoot anything in my life. I mean, I took the camera out while I was on the plane, getting off the plane. I mean, ready and waiting, and the trip was just, it was a cross between being wonderfully organized and spontaneous. So we had a chance to shoot so many different subjects, and I think I shot more than I ever shot in my life, frankly. Thousands and thousands of images, and just had a blast, with and then meeting Travis on the board. The three of us are on the board of the APA, and the idea that the three of us can go with different disciplines. Bruce being, a seasoned street shooter, for so many years and has a wonderful eye, and then meeting Travis, who comes from a whole different place, from shooting celebs and shooting portraits and having a real background in social media. And then my background comes almost out of left field in a way, for the people that are on a trip like this, where they can actually have a career director in their ear helping them design shots and figure out what to do next. I mean, one of the big things, which I thought was kind of interesting, is that I've been on a few trips since then, and I noticed that people come back with virtually drives of images, not quite sure what to do with exactly. They have to kind of cherry pick the things that look good and then maybe not look so good. And I think if they had a little bit more of an agenda and had a little bit, like the three of us, helping them through this to know what they're going to do next, they may come out with better images, and that's what I'm hoping. So I'm really excited about November going with Bruce, and hopefully in February with Travis and Bruce.
Great. Well, we look forward to seeing the vlog or web series or video feature that comes out of that trip. So, and seeing you on it, Glenn. Awesome.
Terrific.
All right, great. Rick,
Yes.
What great things do you want to promote before you sign off here?
First of all, I just want to say thank you for including me. It's a pleasure to talk with everybody. So we have a couple of things coming up. The next big thing is Exposure, which is Exposure.ae. If you can get yourself to the Dubai area, it's I think the best photo show there is. It's actually a photo show that features photographers. It's all about the photographers. They bring in roughly 30 photographers from around the globe to run a series of small workshops and lectures and do exhibits. So it's a terrific event. If you can't get there, I'll be at Unique Photo December 8th and 9th. doing lighting workshops. I do a tremendous number of location lighting workshops. The subtitle of my workshops is Lighting and Laughing. So if you like really serious workshops, that's not mine. If my workshops are quiet, we're failing. If it's complete and utter chaos, I'm learning. So we've got those couple of things that were coming up. I'm putting together some articles for Photo Focus. I've had a couple on there, and if I can sit still long enough to write some more, I should have another one done in a couple of days. And then you can follow my work at rickfriedman.com or on Facebook and Instagram. Just go find Rick Friedman, spelled Friedman, because when my ancestors got to Ellis Island, they needed a new name, so Friedman seemed good, but they couldn't quite spell, so we became Friedman. But anyway, that's how to find some of my work, and it's been a pleasure talking with everybody. Thank you.
Definitely. Been great to have you, Rick. Travis.
What's up, guys? All right, my pick of the week is Petapixel. You just can't go wrong. You got to listen to it. And Rick, I got to go shoot with you, the big cat cowboy. You and me together, forget about it.
Oh, complete chaos.
And the trip to Cuba is going to be absolutely fantastic. And Glenn kind of summed it up in a great nutshell. And I will even throw out there a special only one time special coupon code, and we'll call it Around the Lens.
Wow.
And if you use that, the very first person will get an hour free portrait session with me, or I will do a workshop free portrait session with you. So either it's your choice. So the first person to book the trip to Cuba with us will get that. You look me up on Instagram, which is at TWKEYES. I do a lot of social media branding and teaching and shooting celebs, so I can either work with you or teach you how to get a better engagement. And
well, I'd sign up for that.
It's been an honor, guys. Absolute honor to be on with this episode with you guys. And that honestly was a highlight for me today.
Indeed. We're glad to have you on. And finally, Bruce, I can't imagine what you would want to promote, but please, anything.
I'm gonna promote the new glasses that I'm gonna bring back from. I'm gonna bring back original Santiago glasses handed to me by the master distiller of Santiago. I will be back in my suitcase so I can put the right rum in the right glass. But exactly what Glenn said. These trips and it's not just Cuba. We're looking into going into Bhutan through Nepal, which would be quite the trip, and then another one to Cape Town, Africa, and with the threesome that we have.
Whoa, easy there.
I got to remove
it's a family show.
I got to remove a couple of the guys. We can literally create custom trips anywhere in the world. So it's just imagination to create these things is it. The other thing I want to really push is for those in the Northeast, American Photographic Artists, which the three of us are board members of American Photographic Artists, is incredible for advocating for the photographer, working on our rights, working on our copyrights. So please look us up at apany.com. And actually, Travis and I will be at B&H on the 19th from 1 to 3 in the event space. We're talking about social media. And on the 20th from 4 to 6, Glenn and I will be talking about the design of your work. So we got lots of stuff, and this has been a great show. Wonderful for your. And actually, you've gotten 5 more likes since I've been propping up the likes here as going along since we've been talking, and our wonderful teacher from SVA, Katrine, actually chimed in, so she's watching us, and it's always great. Thank you.
The great Katrine Eisman.
Yep, she's. I saw her chiming in, so it's great. And actually, my guy from Nepal is actually watching too. So this is a worldwide show. Look at it; it's country to country, not just next door.
We're global. I'm huge in Nepal. In case you know, I'm huge.
I don't know if you know this. I'm kind of a big deal there.
Yeah. Ron, where else am I a big deal?
Also, big deal in the Philippines.
That's
Dave.
right. I'm a big deal in the Philippines. Speaking of Philippines, are we going to hear you speak any more Filipino or whatever it is that you were speaking last time?
That's
Tagalog.
The new thing. That's the new thing.
Yeah.
They want to do more Tagalog content, so get more hilarity to come.
All right. Well, you got to let us know when you're on there so we can promote it, because that's... Oh, man. I never cringed harder in my life than watching you try and speak that language. That was a cringe felt around the world.
A little chuckle there.
Ron, you want to throw anything out there before we sign off?
Wala po. Nothing.
Well, again, I want to thank you.
You're not in the Philippines. Watch CNN.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for being on tonight's show. Truly appreciate it. It's been awesome. 150 episodes so far, and I think we got another 150 episodes at least in the pipe before we sign off, if not more. Heck, I mean, again, we got Twip is at 500 plus. Sharky, you're at 300. So I mean, we got to keep it going. We can't stop it now. We're on the momentum. This is the Around the Lens train. It's going to keep on going forever.
Can't stop, won't stop.
That's right. The last podcast I had only got up to about 50 episodes before I had to kind of nix it. We did make it up to that far, but again, this has been the longest running show I've ever done. So I'm going to keep it going. For as long as I can do it. It's still fun, still enjoyable, and
I was on episode 4 of yours, right?
You were?
Episode
Wow.
4.
Yes.
Way back.
Yes.
Yes, I was one of the first ones also.
That's right. Yeah, you and
Haven't
Ron.
got rid of me yet.
Heck yeah. Well, we hope to have you on many more times in the future. We got a whole season 4 schedule that needs to be filled up. If you're interested in seeing or want to be on the show, if you're watching, you are in the visual journalism world, let me know. Drop me a line. I've got a whole season 4 schedule to fill out, both topics and guests. So please let me know. I'm always open for anybody at any time. You can see our season 4 schedule on our website, aroundthelens.com. That's going to be the final place I'm going to plug. So please, by all means, go check that out. And again, for Travis, Bruce, Rick, Sharky, Glenn, and Ron, I am David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 150. Can't believe we've gotten this far. And we are out.